guys, and welcome to Odds on Serie A Match Day 22. And as we predicted, or you predicted, Danny, Milan lost the Derby della Madonnina. What a surprise before facing the Champions League for the Rossoneri.
Lost badly, I have to say. Inter were far superior. Milan changed formation, switched to a back three. It didn't really work. So in the end, it was only 1-0 to Inter, but they were the winners. Milan now are out of the Champions League places. And as you said correctly, on Tuesday, they play Spurs in the Champions League. That means Champions League, Europa League are returning next week. Up to 5 Italian teams are in the European competitions.
Looking forward to it. So let's analyze all the games before the European week. Of course, in Serie A, guys, remember, leave your comments and support us. Just press the like, thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel. And because Milan is playing on Tuesday, Danny, the first game we are going to analyze is Milan-Torino. On Friday, as always, Serie A schedule the game on Friday when a team is playing in the Champions League on Tuesday. I think this is a good idea from Serie A, but what is not a good idea, I think, is betting on Milan right now, especially with these odds, 1.88. I'm still very surprised to see these very low odds for Milan. They are not winning any single game. Remember, 4 consecutive defeats in all competitions, only 1 victory since the World Cup against Salernitana, and Torino is a dangerous team. They are in good form, Danny.
Well, I never remember a champion defending their title so badly as Milan have doing so far. They seem to have crumbled, especially after the World Cup. Some of the players, the likes of 𝐜𝐿, Hernandez, Giroud, they are coming back basically with almost no form. And there are a lot of issues in the Milan formation. The least one, of course, is that they're conceding far too many goals. So what Pioli decided for the derby is to stick to the 3-5-2, which looks more like a 5-3-2, to match Inter. But they looked out of the depth, for the first 25-30 minutes. 𝐜𝐿 Hernandez and Calabria didn't know where to come short, where to wait. The 3 centre-backs didn't know who to mark. The midfield couldn't keep a single ball. They were not able to build from the back. Inter were all over. In the second half, Pioli changed, went back to the normal formation, brought in 𝐜𝐿, which didn't have a great impact on the game. So yeah, they really look lost, but in the end, they deserve to lose. Only 1 clean sheet in the last 12 for Milan. That's because they defend badly as a team, and also because Mike Magnani is not there. Only 2 clean sheets so far at home for Milan. Maybe people say they lack motivation after winning a Scudetto that nobody expected. That they reached 2 highs and now they're falling. I don't know, but They have issues all over the pitch. Obviously, the fact that the new signings, the 𝐵𝐻𝐿, Origi, Dest, Branks, basically have lost no impact at all. And now they play Torino, which is dangerous because not only in a good form, they beat them here in Coppa Italia 1-0, playing a few reserves a few weeks ago. They got 30 points after 21 games. Last season, they had 31 at this stage, but it's a very high tally for Torino, who are unbeaten in the last 4 away games. They score in 10 out of 11 away games this season. Despite not being a high-scoring team, they never score more than 2 goals, but they are aggressive. They create chances. They have good players up front, the likes of Miranchuk, of course, he's helping them. They might be with some injuries here, problems, because Ricci, midfielder, is playing really well. He's going to be out until March. 𝐵𝐻𝐿, who scored at the weekend, might be a doubt. 𝐜𝐿𝐻𝐿, the new signing, is out as well. So, look, don't write Milan off just yet, but the odds for Milan to win, they seem to me quite low, to be fair, 188. I'm going to go for both teams to score here, which pays a bit more, pays 2.
Okay, I think staying out of Milan is a wise thing, even going, why not, for Torino to get points in San Siro. Well, we will analyze this Milan-Tottenham, of course, the following week, but it looks like it would be a good idea to place your bets on Tottenham, because this Milan, as you are saying, Danny, they are crumbling in the Serie A, and also they are out, of course, of Coppa Italia. Well, this is the first game in this match day. On Saturday, we have 3 games. Empoli, Spezia is the first one with Spezia. Be careful with them because they are only 4 points now from the relegation spots. 3 consecutive defeats. We expected, of course, them to lose against Napoli. And Empoli, on the other hand, Dani, they lost to Roma at the Olimpico, but at home in the Castellani, they've been strong recently. Only 1 draw and 3 consecutive victories playing at home.
And they won all the 4 games at home 2-0 without conceding, only 1 defeat in the last 7, as you said. Yes, they were a bit naive against Roma. They conceded quickly from set pieces, which is Roma strength. So sometimes Empoli are culpable of not starting games very well, being a little bit passive. I remember this happened against Lazio a few weeks ago when then they eventually did it 2-2. But they have still players that are showing good quality, the likes of Baldanzi, ACCA, ACPRO up front, obviously, with Lammers as well, Satriano, Parisi. It is a good side. I think it's a side that have no problems staying up, and they got probably the best keeper, the Italian keeper at the moment, Vicario. Have you seen the save he made, the triple save that he made on Roma? I mean, that is amazing. He's in great form. Empoli does concede a few chances, but they got a great keeper, and he's with a lot of confidence. I think he's going to help them in this game as well because they play against Spezia, who looks a little bit toothless, scoreless in 4 out of 5. They didn't score, of course, at the weekend against Napoli. 10 games with no goals so far in this season for Spezia. Only Sampdoria has done worse with 13 games with no goals. They only got 4 more points on Verona, so now they need to be really, really careful. They're going to be without Zola for this one as well, without Ampadu, without Caldara, who are suspended. And against Napoli, Spezia did what they could. They did well for 45 minutes. They play defensively. In the end, when Napoli pushed and pushed in the second half, they crumbled. They gifted the 3 goals. The 3 goals are, 1 is a penalty and 2 are 2 defensive mistakes. The away form from Spezia now start to be worrying as well. Only 6 points collected is a relegation away form. I don't see Spezia going to the Castellani and scoring a lot of goals, to be fair. I think Empoli could be a good betting on them because, the odds for Empoli to win are over 2. But I'm going to be cautious here. Maybe if Empoli has an off day, it could be a low-scoring game, under 2.5 goals, 188.
All right, you mentioned that Empoli was a bit naive in the goals conceded against Roma. Actually, both were identical from corner kicks, and it was this close to get the third one also identical Roma. And right now, Mourinho supporters and of course Roma supporters, they are happy to see Roma in the third spot in the third spots in the standings. I think it's been a long time without seeing Roma in this spot after being knocked out, remember, in Coppa Italia shockingly by Cremonese before. Also, Dani, a lot of news around Roma because Zaniolo surprisingly is leaving Serie A to go to the Turkish football, and in the middle of this, of course, Roma traveling to Lecce, trying, of course, to get also the 3 points from Puglia to stay in the Champions League spots.
Despite being many problems with Roma, the list of them, of course, Zaniolo, and the fact that he left, I think is good news for Roma in terms that they resolved the issue, but it's a bad news for everyone involved. I mean, it's a typical lose-lose situations. But Roma, despite everything, and despite not being spectacular, not playing as well as people expected at the beginning of the season, they are third in the table. They have a Dybala who is in great form, other 2 assists from set pieces, of course. And they are doing well since the restart of the campaign. They are third on the away table, only 2 defeats. The last game was a defeat at Napoli, but they didn't deserve to lose this one. So obviously they are in with a great chance to compete for Champions League football next season. Now, Dybala is a doubt for this one, so check the lineups before putting your bet, because Roma with Dybala is something. Roma without Dybala, we saw it, they create much less, but there is a 𝐜𝐵𝐸𝐵𝐸 that they look much more confidence now, and sooner or later we're going to see Wijnaldum back on the pitch. So obviously more good things to come for Roma, which play Salzburg, by the way, on Thursday in Europa League, but I don't think Mourinho is going to make too many changes for this game at the Via del Mare. Lecce, they won against Cremonese as I expected. They did not suffer much. They got 23 points, +9 on Verona. They are safe. I don't think they're going to go down. And also because the home form is very good, they tend to score at home against top teams. They won against Lazio, they won against Atalanta, both 2-1, score against Milan in a 2-2 draw, score against Inter at the beginning. It is a team that, despite spending a lot of time in their own half, they can counter quickly, and they got a couple of players up front. Strefezza, above all, who's having a great season, scored at the weekend as well. I think he's 6 or 7 goals, who are dangerous. Both to score here, 2-15. I think Lecce can concede goals, but I think they got in them to score against Roma, and the odds are so good. 2-15. Both.
Roma indeed traveling to Austria to play against Salzburg on Thursday. Lecce almost safe after this key victory against Cremona. And for the Champions League spots on Saturday, we have a very, very good Lazio Atalanta. Lazio still in Champions League spots, but they had a bad week because they were out of Coppa Italia against Juve and also drew with Verona away. And Atalanta didn't do much better, also losing to Sassuolo and losing to Inter in Coppa Italia. For Atalanta, only one victory in the last 5 Serie A games, playing away at the beginning of the season. The Gasperini's men, Danny, were very strong playing away from Bergamo. Now is the opposite, better at home.
Strange week for Atalanta. Yeah, 2 scoreless game against Sassuolo and Inter in the Coppa Italia. In Coppa Italia against Inter, they didn't look very good, a bit passive. They didn't actually create much. Again, against Sassuolo, I think the game was affected by the fact that Mele was sent off in the first half. He was not a sending off, but they did not create a lot. In the end, Sassuolo had 10 more shots than Atalanta, and this is quite surprising. Winless Atalanta in 4 of the last 5 away Serie A games. Gasperini, I thought he found the good formation with Højlund, with Lookman up front and Boga, but he changed it in the last 2 games. He didn't start Højlund and Lookman in Coppa Italia against Inter, which was a great chance to go to the semi-final, and he played. Zapata, didn't do really well. Boga didn't start against Sassuolo, so again, he's starting tinkering again. But I think with Atalanta, the issue is, now the Juve has been penalized, out of a sudden, they are in the Champions League fight, and this might have changed their mentality a little bit, because at the beginning of the season, their objective was to get back to European football, being Europa League, Conference League, rebuilding. But now, out of a sudden, saying, wait, hey, we got a chance here. We can actually finish 4th. And I wonder whether this has added a little bit more of pressure, has made Gasperini making some strange choice as well. I mean, yeah, really disappointing the fact they went out in the Coppa Italia. Remember, Atalanta, they don't play in Europe this season, so they got a great advantage on Milan, on Roma, on Lazio. Now they need to capitalize. Lazio drew against Verona. Typical Lazio game. They take the lead, then they concede a goal. They could concede another one, then they wake up. In the end, the draw was fine. It is a game. It is a Lazio side that looks a little bit tired because they played in Coppa Italia against Juventus as well on a Thursday, and they only scored 2 in the last 3. But recently they trashed Milan so far 4-0. Maybe the squad is a little bit short. Maybe against smaller teams, this Lazio side switches off. They're currently 4th. I think they got a lot of time to prepare this game, and I think they're gonna be fired up. Although, of course, on Thursday they play Cluj in the Conference League, but I'm not expecting Sarri to make changes in the league. He'll probably do it in the game against the Romanians. This should be a high-scoring game. It should be over 2.5 goals, which pays 190.
Okay, very good game. Perhaps the best one in this match day, Lazio-Atalanta. Then we have a quiet Sunday, I would say, Danny. Good to place bets, but most of the games in the middle part of the standings. For instance, this Udinese-Sassuolo, I'm also very surprised to see these odds, because Udinese, they are big favorites for the game. Odds are 2.1 to win. They lost to Torino, only 1 victory in the last 13 Serie A games. This is a very poor record. And Sassuolo, they've woken up victories against Atalanta and Milan recently.
Yeah, I don't see Udinese being the favorite, to be fair. A team that only scored 5 goals in the last 6. 5 out of the last 6 games have been under, so they don't really take a lot of chances. And the game you mentioned, they won, was a 1-0 against Sampdoria in the very last minute. And Sampdoria had a lot of chances. Since 𝐬𝐭𝐴 is out, the light has gone off at Udinese. They also look a little bit tired. Now with 𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐻, which, by the way, is a World Cup champion in 2018. Could you believe it? And now plays for Udinese after his spell in Mexico. Hopefully 𝐿𝐴𝐽𝐻 is going to give them a little bit more of creativity for a side that started so well, has really slowed down. And Sassuolo, the opposite. Now they've woken up, beat Milan, beat Atalanta. First clean sheet for Sassuolo in 14 games. They managed to keep Atalanta at bay. They were playing against the 10 men anyway. But it's a side that, it's been underperforming so far, Sassuolo. So I would expect them to have a stronger second half of the season. Look at the goal difference. It's still -7, and they lost already 6 away games. So difficult to trust this side, but I think more nice, good things are to come from Sassuolo. I'm going to be really cautious with this one. It could be anything. This game is not, it could be so open. I'm going to go for over 1 goal in the first half, 190. I think Sassuolo are going to start strongly, maybe to score the first goal, but it's a bit of a parachute. If there's only 1 goal in the first half, obviously you get your money back.
Also in the middle of the table, we have Bologna, Monza, but in this case, both teams are in great form. Bologna, 10 points out of the last 12, beating Fiorentina away in the last one. And Monza, they drew in the very last minute against Sampdoria, but away they've won the last 2. Remember that they won against Juventus recently.
Yeah, and Bologna won back-to-back away games. And in the last 12 games, since Thiago Motta is in charge, they got a form for Champions League. They will be 5th in the table. They scored 2 goals in 3 out of the last 4 games. And, under Thiago Motta, 7 wins in 12. That's a very, very good tally, considering that most of these wins, they came without Arnautovic, but they found Orsolini in great form, already 8 goals. And yes, under Thiago Motta, they scored in 11 out of 12 games. Only 1 game they didn't score when they play away at Roma. They have a good style of play. They are attacking, going forward. Against Fiorentina, had chances, conceded as well. It was a little bit of a chaotic game, but they seem to relish this chaos, if you like. And I think they see themselves having a chance maybe to push in even for Europe. So I'm expecting here another good game because Monza is a scoring side. We all know that. They got quality up front and in midfield. They got Carlos Augusto has been one of the revelation of this season so far, 4 goals and 3 assists. And by the way, Monza is the only team that is unbeaten in 2023, only lost 1 game since November. In the middle, they drew against Inter, beat Juventus, as you mentioned. Against Sampdoria, maybe a little bit lucky because the penalty was deep in stoppage time. Sampdoria took the lead. Monza didn't create much, but in the end, they scored. They got the ball in the box, and Sampdoria committed a stupid foul. 14 goals scored in the last 7 for Monza. So that's an average of 2 goals per game. I don't understand why the odds for over 2.25 goals are so low. 193, that's what I'm going. Maybe because Bologna drew 1-1 recently at home against Cremonese. But I think this, for the way these 2 teams play, should be at least an over 2.25 goals, 193. If there are only 2 goals, obviously you get half your stake back.
Okay, and another game, as I said, in the middle of the table, all of them in this Sunday is Juve Fiorentina, but this is always, Danny, a high-intensity game because the rivalry is very strong between these 2 teams. Both, they are at least in the semifinals of Coppa Italia. We cannot say big things about Serie A for neither of the teams. And we also have to highlight, of course, that Juve is playing Europa League on Thursday against Nantes.
And Fiorentina playing Conference League against Braga. They're going to Portugal. That's not going to be an easy game. So things gonna change a lot now, especially for Fiorentina, now that they start the schedule, Thursday, Sunday again, and obviously with the Coppa Italia semi-final in sight against Cremonese. What a great chance for Fiorentina to advance to the final. I think now we're gonna see more and more rotation from Fiorentina. Fiorentina still unpredictable. They lost the last 2 home games. Their away form is also very poor. Only 8 goals scored. There is a team that's got potential, talent, players the likes of Barak, Bonaventura, Saponara. They are mercurial. I mean, when they are on their days, they're really, really good. They're also the likes of 𝐿𝐭𝐴 and Cabral. But, you know, sometimes they don't seem to have that consistency. Away from home, some Fiorentina only won at Sampdoria and Spezia, and now they play Juventus, which might have the disadvantage that they play on Tuesday night and Fiorentina played on Sunday afternoon. So again, the schedule has not been very kind to Juventus, but the game they had against Salernitana was nothing but very easy. They won 3-0, they could have won 6-0, they hit the bar, they hit the post. And the good news is that Vlahovic is back. He scored 2 goals, had a very good game, and he scored 115 days after his last goal, 8 goals so far this season, despite all the troubles for Vlahovic, still 1 more goal than what he scored last season with Juventus in the league. They dominated against Salernitana. The bad news is the injury to the young Miretti, who might be out. But Chiesa played 30 minutes and he showed how good he is. He's coming back to his best form. I'm not expecting now all the Juventus game to be wins to nil or to be under as before. Okay, obviously there is still the minus 15-point deduction, which we don't know whether it's going to be restored or not. Juventus have to go for it. Allegri is talking about achieving salvation. I think they're going to be saved unless they're going to get more points deducted. But I think for the points that they got on the table, they're going to be saved. But I think they're going to go for it. They're going to attack more. Fiorentina could sneak in. I'm still not convinced about Juventus back 3 with the 3 Brazilians. Both to score. 197.
Big game, this one always in Italy, and actually recently, I think was 2 years ago, no? Fiorentina won in yes. Torino. Well, was in 2020 actually, yeah, 3-0 Fiorentina won. It was a huge victory for the Viola, and still we have 1 more game on Sunday, Napoli Cremonese. This is the first, again the last. So yes. Danny, good luck to find the good odds. The caveat, as you usually say, Danny, of course, is that we all remember this game in Coppa Italia with Cremonese knocking out Napoli, but in Serie A is another thing. Now Cremonese is the only team in the top 5 leagues without a victory because Lecce won in La Liga, and Napoli continue winning easily every single game.
They're more solid under Ballardini, Cremonese. You know, Ballardini is a manager that is very experienced in coming on in the middle of the season, and he achieved salvation 7 out of 8 times he took a team in the middle of the season. So he knows how to strengthen them, or he was maybe 9 out of 10. Anyway, his percentage is very, very high. Still no wins for Cremonese. He changed the formation to a back 5, so they are more solid, but they're toothless. Against Lecce, they didn't create much. They only conceded 5 in the last 3 Serie A games. And now, good luck going to the Maradona. Napoli are firing. They haven't got a midweek game. They play Champions League the following week, so obviously they can focus on this one and can rack up the points as much as they can. I mean, against Spezia, it wasn't a great Napoli display. It wasn't anything spectacular, but you know, they had the ball all the time. They pounce and pounce and pounce. In the end, Spezia made the mistakes, and you know, they won by default. Really, these days when you look at Napoli game, it's not about whether they're going to win or not, but how they're going to win, how many assists Kvaratskhelia is going to give, how many goals Osimhen is going to score. And also they kept the clean sheet, Napoli as well, which is the 25th clean sheet since Spalletti is in charge. So since last year, only Juve has got the same number. So if you look at the overall defensive numbers of the last 2 seasons, that's only 46 goals conceded. So they are the best defense in Serie A since Spalletti took over. That tells you how well organized they are, how well they keep the ball. Lobotka hardly misses a pass. They won 18 out of 21, so record numbers. Now, obviously, they are hugely favored to win the Scudetto. We also have to say that the opposition had not been great. Inter have got 43 points. This is the lowest tally for a team in the second place in the last 8 seasons. Previously, with 43 points, teams would have been 4th or 3rd, so they're not really found a great opposition on the way. The odds here, very difficult. The reverse fixture was 4-1. I'm going to go for Napoli to win 2-0, which on Oddspedia, surprisingly, is 1.93.
Well, Napoli still they have to wait to play their Champions League game against Frankfurt. Is going to be on the 21st of February. What a chance for Serie A to have at least two teams in the quarterfinals. I'm thinking also in Inter beating Porto is going to be tougher for sure for Milan to beat Tottenham, but perhaps they have a chance. Before the Champions League, Danny, on Monday we still have two games, Verona Salernitana, and this one is a key game for relegation because Verona, now they are only 4 points away from Spezia and 7 points away from Salernitana, so they can drag the team from Campania to the fight. Verona getting positive results lately with the draw, for instance, against Lazio or Udinese, 7 points in the last 9 played at the 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐽𝐽, and Salernitana, apart from that victory in Lecce, looking bad recently.
Absolutely. I mean, the form of these two teams cannot be more different. Verona, as you mentioned, they are in good form, 3 games unbeaten, scoring 7 out of the last 8 at home, had chances against Lazio. They are physical, they are intense, they are not the most technical team in Serie A. Actually, sometimes they're quite poor, but with a lot of fight, with a lot of guile and going forward, they do create chances, physically very strong. Salernitana on the other side, they conceded 17 in the last 6 games, despite having 𝐿𝐿𝐴, which is playing really well, but there's nothing he can do if the defense doesn't clear, or if he finds 1-1 against an attacker. Against Juventus, they could have conceded 5 or 6. And the problem with Salernitana is that in January, they have strengthened. They got 𝐜𝐭𝐤, they got 𝐜𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴, they got a lot of players, but probably in the wrong positions. It's the defense that is really, really leaky. Since maybe they're missing Mazzocchi, one of the wing backs, the cover is not really there. They got a worst defense record now, 41 goals conceded, and only 1 away clean sheet for Salernitana, who won the last away game at Lecce in very lucky circumstances. I trust Salernitana to go to Verona and score, but I cannot trust them to keep a clean sheet, really. So I'm going to go for an over 2.5 goals here, 207.
And the last game in this match day is Sampdoria-Inter. Sampdoria, of course, also in this relegation battle. They were this close to get the victory, as we mentioned before, against Monza. Gabbiadini scored a brace, but it was not possible. Now it's going to be tougher for the blue cerchiati facing Inter. Apart from that defeat against Empoli at home, they look recovered. They look in form, winning a lot of games. Also in form to play this game in the Champions League in 10 days against Porto. But Danny, be careful. Inter weren't able to win in the last 2 trips to Genoa to face Sampdoria.
Yeah, that's right. It is a place where Inter has struggled recently, but now they come on the back of a great win in the derby, so a lot of morale. And in the last month, they beat Napoli 1-0, Milan 1-0, Milan 3-0 in the Super Cup, and Atalanta 1-0. So these are 4 wins against 3 top teams, despite not playing amazingly, but showing a lot of solidity, a lot of trust in their manager, Inzaghi. Look, Inter had to do without Brozovic for a long time. He's go back in the derby. Lukaku's form has been hit and miss, and now he's coming back, but he's not a starter. They had issues in the defense as well. For example, Dumfries has been recently injured. De Vrij has not been up to his level. So Inzaghi had to do with the material he has. He has a very strong and deep squad, we have to say, but nobody expected them to play with Darmian, with Mkhitaryan, with Acerbi on a regular basis. So credit to him. It is basic, it is simple, but there's his talent as well as there. Çalhanoğlu is having a very good season. Lautaro has been amazing. Now he's the captain. He looks very confident. After the World Cup, where basically he missed his place in favor of Julian Alvarez, he came back fired up and he scored again on the derby. The big regret for Inter is that they've lost 6 games so far. The start of the season was poor. They lost a game against Empoli 2 weeks ago, where they looked a little bit rigid and couldn't change the tactics. And away, they've been poor. They lost 4 away games. They conceded 22 goals and no away clean sheet. Amazingly, the away goal difference for Inter is -2. So these are where the pitfalls of Inter have been, especially on the travel. And sometimes they were not able to go into the rhythm and to the flow from the beginning of the game. But now they go to Sampdoria. They got a massive chance to get the 3 points, although obviously the Scudetto race is basically over, because Sampdoria seems very emotionally fragile. They squandered again 2 points against Monza. They had the game plan, worked it out very well. They knew Monza were going to concede chances. They took them. Then they were solid at the back. At the end, they gave up a very stupid penalty, and it was 2-2. I think what 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐸𝐿 is trying to do is trying to build a team that can play football a little bit more. That's why Harry Winks is on the pitch. Rely a lot on Gabbiadini up front and try to obviously give them a little more of a fine spirit. But the results are not really there. Sampdoria haven't scored in 5 of the last 6 games. Obviously scored 2 at Monza, and the home form has been really, really bad. Only 2 points at Marassi, lost the last 7, didn't score in the last 6. They play an Inter side that obviously, remember, this was still a very strong defense under Conte, and the personnel, it's still there. Inter can be solid when they want to. The odds, difficult here, really, really difficult. Inter to win the first half, 206.
Very favorite, of course. Inter, the second in the standings against the penultimate in the standings since the last game we have in this very interesting match day, as always in Serie A. Everything analyzed by Daniele Fisichella. Let's finish the video, Danny, with your safe bet.
Empoli not to lose against Spezia home. I'm going to go for Empoli Asian handicap 0, pays 152.
Okay, and let's try another ACCA.
5 selections this time. Milan Asian handicap 0, Lecce Roma double chance 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐸𝐿, Bologna Monza over 1.5 goals, Napoli Asian handicap -1.5, and a double chance Verona Salernitana 1x. Total odds altogether 472.
Good luck, everyone. Thanks, Danny. As always, the guy who knows absolutely everything about Serie A. So the only thing missing is just press the like if you enjoyed the video. And of course, subscribe. See you next week, Danny. Bye-bye.
Ciao.